Welcome to Zonie Living. I'm Bonnie Stevens. Do you want to be happier or maybe have more peace in your life? Many of us do. The world's greatest philosophers and spiritual leaders of all time have tried to help us with that. And now, Utah State University School of Business professor Michael Glauser is helping us with that as well. He has been digging deep into the teachings and also exploring cutting-edge research in the field of positive psychology. Dr. Glauser has done the work for us. He's sifted through centuries of history and readings and funneled the answers into 6 basic principles for creating a life of happiness and more peace, whether it be at home, in the workplace, or in the world. It's all captured in his compelling new book, One People, One Planet: 6 Universal Truths for Being Happy Together. He's joining us in a moment, and while he'll be teaching us how to live better, we'll also hear from pharmacist Ted Sapolsky, who will be helping us live healthier. Some say we're facing a tripledemic. But first, joining us now from Salt Lake City is author, entrepreneur, business consultant, athlete, and executive director for the Center for Entrepreneurship in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University is Dr. Michael Glauser. Hi, Michael.
Hi there, Bonnie. It's great to be with you. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Oh, fantastic. So great to have you here. You have sorted through the world's major religions and the teachings of great prophets and philosophers to provide quite a consolidation of wisdom in your book. I've got it right here. One People, One Planet. And you've given us a quick synopsis of the lives of people like Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, and talked about the great Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and of course the Hindu sages. And by the way, I love you tell us that Muhammad was born in year 570 and promoted equality then among all people. Certainly a difficult subject at that time and something we continue to struggle with today. So I'm thinking if everyone were just to read your book, I believe we would have a greater understanding and acceptance throughout the planet and realize that we have so much in common. And that alone would get us to living closer to living peacefully. But beyond that, you lay out a path for us to happiness and civility.
Yeah, I've been concerned about what I call 2 epidemics we're experiencing in our country. And one is the epidemic of despair, anxiety, depression, other emotional illnesses, and suicide. Thoughts of suicide have increased in just about every age group for some reason over the last decade. And then we're also experiencing what I call an epidemic of incivility, where there's just a lot of judging and hatred amongst various groups and political parties. And so I wanted to see if there were some proven principles that would lead to greater joy and happiness personally and greater civility in our communities. And so I started searching, literature to see where I might find these proven concepts. And the first place I turned was to some of the real original writings of the great religious founders. So The 4 largest religions in the world are Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. So I went and read all of those early manuscripts that I could find. I didn't deal with the different branches of those faiths that have splintered off and broken off. I looked at the original texts and tried to see if there were some common practices for being happy on the earth and living civilly in communities on the earth. So that's kind of the first place that I looked with those religious founders. And they've influenced about, 75 to 80% of the world has been influenced by their teachings and philosophies. And we've never had such a strong group of leaders that had such an impact on billions of people on the earth.
And you mentioned to me that this book took you about 4 months to write, but probably 2 decades to do the research. And it sounds like that is a lot of work to go through.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to live in the Middle East early in my career as a young university professor. And I was forbidden to talk about my faith, which was Christianity. But they said, we can teach you about Islam if you're interested. So I basically studied for a couple of years the Islamic faith. And what you have to do is you have to look at the teachings of these original writings in terms of what they said about human happiness and human civility in communities. And that's where the common threads are. They're almost identical teachings in Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. If you look at some of the what we call mysteries that can't really be vetted with science or research, you see differences. But if you look at the things they taught about happiness and civility, those can be studied, they can be researched, they can be shown to be valid. And so that's what I focused on.
Yeah, and it's all what we suspect, but thank you for doing the work. And in more recent times, doctors Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud talked about the ego. And we often think of the ego as that pompous, arrogant part of us, but as you point out, it can also cause us to feel inferior or even defeated. So let's jump right in. Let's start with principle number 1 of your 6 principles, which tells us to overcome our fabricated egos. And you tell a great story about the Salsa queen.
Yeah, so we think about ego today as someone that's pompous and arrogant and bigger than life and better than other people. But the way ego's been defined throughout history is it's a composite of all of our self-perceptions. It's everything that we believe about ourselves. In the early Hindu and Buddhist writings, they say it's a fabrication or an illusion. It's been fed to us from parents and teachers and the media. And so we grow up thinking we're too tall or too short or too thick or too thin or smart or not smart enough or athletic or not athletic enough. And these self-perceptions really limit what we do with our lives. And so the first principle is to give up, realize that these self-perceptions are fabricated. They're not who we really can become. We have tremendous potential as human beings. And there is a way to overcome these and to grow into something different and better. And so I teach this principle through some stories. And one of my favorite people and role models is Salsa Queen Zapata. She and I were just in the Dominican Republic teaching women that have been rescued from the slave trade and that live in poverty. And she's a phenomenal teacher and a great friend. But she came to the United States. She was here illegally. She had no education. She didn't speak English, so she couldn't enroll in school. She grew up thinking she was no good and had no value. She went through 2 marriages, 2 divorces, and found herself as a single mom with 7 children.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
In a complete state of hopelessness and despair and feeling like there's no way out of this. And then she met a friend named Jim who said, what do you like to do? And what are you good at? And he was really an incredible coach and mentor to her. And she said, well, I know food, I know salsas. And so they started making salsas. And the steps to changing her self-perception were small but consistent. So first she started selling the salsas on Facebook. And she got a lot more confidence that, hey, I can do something. I have value. And then she started selling them in farmers markets and would sell out every week. And then she started selling them in smaller grocery stores and eventually got into the large chains. And she's in over 1,000 grocery stores nationwide now. She's the largest manufacturer of salsas in the Intermountain West and is very happy and confident and believes in herself and is now devoting her career and earning money to help people that are in the situation that she was in. But it's a complete 180-degree turn of her self-perceptions. And now she's doing marvelous things that she had the capacity to do all along. But she had to find someone that helped her and believed in her. And she had to take those small steps, that upward spiral of small successes that led her to where she is today. So that's something we can all do, is kind of say, the things I think about myself, they may not be all that accurate. And maybe there's a better way to think and a different way to live.
Yeah, well, her story is just so inspirational. And I also noticed that hidden in your book is also the lesson about the power of encouragers. You mentioned Jim. And in the Salsa Queen story, it sounds like it only took one person to believe in her. And wow, did that turn her life around.
Just incredible. That's what we find trying to help people rise out of poverty around the world. They're kind of fixated in this belief that they're stuck where they are, there's no way out, and they're never going to get out. And the first thing they need to do is they need a shift of mindset where they believe there's a possibility to be different and they see a path for doing that. And often it just takes one strong mentor that will help and work with you on those issues.
Well, principle 2, you talk about refrain from judging other people. So your personality, of course, is peppered throughout the book, which is so much fun. And we get to know you a little bit. And you talk about how we judge others based on really very little information. And you give a great example of the Mrs. Lee principle. Tell us about her.
Yeah, so we form perceptions of other people in the same way we form perceptions of ourselves. We're fed information about them, and we see superficial cues like color and race and ethnicity and religion and political party and education and neighborhoods and so on. And because people are complex and our minds aren't that complex, we fill in all the pieces for their personalities. And we say, if they're like this, they must also be like that. So if you're a Republican, you're like this. If you're a Democrat, you're like that. If you're a Catholic, you're like this. If you're an atheist, you're like that. If you're black or white or whatever, we attach characteristics to people, and those perceptions are always incomplete and often very inaccurate.
And you met Mrs. Lee when you were a little bit off balance there, it sounds like.
Yeah, so what we do is when we see people do something silly or what we even think is stupid, we decide if it's situational, it's just happening because of what they're going through, or if it's a permanent part of their personality.
That's who they are, sure.
I was a brand new professor. I had a brand new child. I was working aggressively at the university and joining boards and up late at night and all night some nights. And I met Mrs. Lee from a board I was on, and she and I were paired to work together. And so the first blunder I made is we were going to a training meeting, and she was going to pick me up at 6 a.m. and I either didn't set my alarm or slept through it. And so we were late to that first meeting, my first experience with her.
That's
the next week we had another meeting. I said, I'll drive, I'll pick you up, and I know exactly where we're going. She said, you sure you know? And I said, yeah. And I missed the freeway exit, and we were late to the second meeting. The third experience, I was on our way to our weekly board meeting, and I could see I was just about out of gas. It was below the E, my gauge, and I thought, I can't be late to this meeting the third time, so I drove on to the meeting and made it. And 2 blocks later on my way home, I ran out of gas, and lo and behold, Mrs. Lee was right behind me, and she pulled over to see what was wrong. So this is my third experience with her in about 2 weeks. And I said, hey, I'm going to call my wife. She'll bring my gas can. And she said, no, I'm not having it. I'm taking you home to get your gas can. And she insisted. So we drove about 15 or 20 minutes to my house. I grabbed the gas can. I ducked my head in the door and told my wife what had happened and went back to the car. And we filled the car up with gas. And then I reached into my pocket and didn't have my car keys.
I think that's my favorite part right there.
I had left them on my counter when I went in to talk to my wife. So in other words, in 2 weeks, I had 4, horrendous mistakes with a brand new board member. And she could have judged that as my permanent personality. I'm an absent-minded, fly-by-night, silly professor, which I don't think anyone would describe me like that. But I was going through a very, very rough time. And she instead decided it was situational and just said, hey, it's perfectly okay. We all make mistakes. I would never hold this against you. We went on to become very, very good friends. And I think I demonstrated that I was more competent than that. So I consider that my Mrs. Lee principle. When I see someone do something that's silly or I don't understand at all, I think it must be situational or something they're going through. And I try to give them the benefit of the doubt rather than assigning that to a permanent personality. Yeah, it's really helped me to give people, a break and cut them some slack and not be so judgmental.
We should all be so generous. That's fantastic. Well, principle 3 is engage in healing good deeds. And as you mentioned in the book, the Hindu sages call this karma. We're all familiar with that. Their writings are filled with messages like those who do good become good, and those who do harm become bad. You also touch on this principle with your story about a career criminal, and I found this fascinating. He'd been in prison for much of his life, who adopted the act as if concept. And that means act as if you're honest and you become honest. And you teach us about Confucius and his concept of Ren, which I understand is actually more than doing good deeds.
Yeah, Confucius used the concept of Ren to mean that we are all connected. It's a realization that we're all connected in life and we impact each other. And so we need to be benevolent, good-hearted, warm-hearted, kind. It's not just doing good deeds. It's a whole shift in mindset that we have to be decent people with each other in our communities. And so doing good deeds is a big part of that. And the science is so clear on this that people that get up in the morning and think, me all day long. Is my hair right? How do I look? Are my clothes right? Did I say the right thing? We bring all the emotions of being human into our lives, anxiety and depression and fear. But if we get up and think of others and say, how can I add value today? Is there something I can do for someone that would help make their life better? And that's what he was referring to with Ren, is this whole idea of contributing to a community daily. So we might give simple things like carry someone's groceries or give up a seat on the bus or pay for the toll of the car behind us or go shovel someone's snow in the winter, bake someone some bread, just good deeds daily, almost random good deeds. The research is so clear that dramatically reduces stress, anxiety, depression. It gives us a sense of self-worth and self-value. And it happens in real time. If I'm feeling down today and I go out and find some people to serve, I feel better today.
Sure. That's a really good lesson.
That's a very, very powerful principle that helps build strong communities.
Yeah, and help us individually as well. Well, principle number 4 is forgive others for their offenses. And now we all know this and we all know we should do this, but this is a hard one. And the stories you offer are so horrific. You discuss the Holocaust and random murderous shootings, and yet people who have been deeply hurt find a way to forgive and even love those who have done terrible things. And this is such hard work that the Hindu sages, you tell us, called forgiveness heroic. The Greek philosophers simply said holding a grudge and being vindictive is below our dignity of magnanimous individuals. And I really like that. In essence, they were saying, come on, we're better than that. But I have a question for you. Are we really better than that? Can we do this?
I think we can be. And I think that's our choice. And one of the great analogies that I found in the Buddhist writings, the Buddha says there's 3 types of people in the world with regard to anger and forgiveness. The first person is like a line etched in stone. It stays there for decades and years and maybe a lifetime.
Right.
The second person is like a line etched in the ground or the dirt, and it stays there for a while, but it eventually disappears. And the third person, the healthiest person, is like a line etched in water. It goes away immediately. And so he was teaching us that the best thing, we can't always control what people do. We can't control what they say and how they treat us, but we can control how we react. And if we if we become offended really easily, we carry around a lot of anger. And the research shows that we have more stress in our lives, we have more anxiety, we have more depression. But the worst thing is we've given up control to someone else of our own peace of mind and happiness. And so holding this anger, it's kind of like drinking a poison and waiting for the other person to die, that if we become a line etched in water and we don't take offense in the first place, then we're going to be much happier and much healthier. And it's really a matter of saying, hey, I'm a work in progress. I make mistakes. I can be different tomorrow. And that person can be different tomorrow too. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And we're going to grow in life together as we sojourn through this path of trying to improve ourselves. And those are the happiest people, and they're the healthiest people. Emotional health leads to great physical health. So this is a very important principle. And as you mentioned, I met some amazing people that have forgiven things that, I'm not sure I could.
Right.
But been great examples, and their stories are in the book.
Yeah, such good stories. Well, Principle 5 says, share the good fortunes in our lives. So the Hindu sages said there was nothing wrong with having great treasures, which I'm happy to hear that, but it was the attachment to them that was the problem in leading us away from happiness. And in the Islamic faith, you mentioned that Muhammad taught that everything we have in life is given to us by Allah. For Christians, everything comes from God. So that, in essence, makes us stewards of the things we possess, and then our responsibility becomes to manage them in a way that's most beneficial for the community. So you write how sharing good fortune can mean that, and can also mean different things. It could mean creating jobs and paying people well.
Yeah, sharing our good fortune can be sharing our time, sharing our talents, sharing our knowledge, sharing our resources, sharing our money. But the real problem with attachment is that it feeds this fabricated illusion of self. We start believing that we are the things that we own and our possessions define us. And we end up becoming kind of a prisoner to those possessions. And again,
what if we lose everything? Then what happens?
Yeah, we have a lot of, we start becoming greedy and hoarding, and we have a fear that we're going to lose what we have. And so the research on this is also very clear that if we are generous, if we keep what is sufficient for our needs, but we're generous with what else we have, that we're just a lot happier. We build better relationships. We have more friendships. We have more contacts, more human interaction. We feel, again, that we have value. And it's interesting that, my wife and I just remodeled our home here, and we had to move everything out of the house and store it for a while. And then when the home was ready, new paint, new floors and everything, we thought, we don't want to move all this stuff back in there. It seems so nice and clean to us.
Sure.
That, we went through our closets, we went through our all of our rooms. We gave away furniture, we gave away utensils and equipment. I gave away probably more than half of my clothes. My rule was if I hadn't worn it for a year, I didn't need it. And our home is completely decluttered. We didn't even put the pictures back up on the walls. And I can't tell you how good it feels to come into a clean, decluttered home. But more than that is we found people that needed what we have. And it just ended up being a really, really rich and positive experience for us.
Wonderful. I love how you talk also about the sharing economy that has evolved into a lot of what we're doing now. We share rides, we share houses, and we put bedrooms up for Airbnb and all sorts of things. So we've stepped away from needing to protect and own so much.
Yeah, we've got to quit thinking about possessions and start thinking more about people and become people-oriented. We can't all have everything. The world's growing too rapidly. We're using up our resources, but we have a lot of things that we don't need. So we can actually share everything now. There are websites and formats and templates to share cars and houses and tools and toys and equipment and even personnel and organizations.
True.
And the more that we develop this attitude of sharing, we just become part of a bigger community, and that brings us a great deal of joy and happiness. And I found it interesting that a journalist followed Gandhi around for years, and he finally said, "I want you to summarize your philosophy of life in 25 words or less." And Gandhi said, I can do it in 3: renounce and enjoy.
Wow.
And he was actually referring to a Hindu scripture in the Upanishad that talks about how we become prisoners of possessions, and we're far more joyful if we find, peace within ourselves, and it isn't attached to something we have to hold on to outside of ourselves.
Wow.
So I think this is also, again, these are just ways to become happier. No one has to do these things, but if you want to improve your state of mind and your physical health, these are things that have been proven to have a difference through 20 years of research now.
20 years of research and age-old wisdom, and certainly in science today, as you mentioned. Well, one of the ways you give, Michael, is to help those living in poverty around the world start and build small businesses. You're the director of the SEED, that's SEED, Self-Sufficiency Program, which helps people improve their standard of living and benefit their communities through entrepreneurship. And thus, you say greater happiness comes from getting involved with those we serve.
Yeah, I think if we would all find someone, this is a little different. Caring for the needy is a little different than just going out and doing good deeds all day. This is more of finding a person or a group of person where Jim found Salsa Queen. Find someone that's been through a divorce, or someone that's lost a job, or someone that's suffering with some mental challenges or emotional issues, and become a friend and a mentor and really help bring them along. And so we go out into the world. We're in 6 countries. I have 100 students from the university that live in these countries, and we teach them how to teach the skills of entrepreneurship and small business development. And so they live in these countries full time, and they mentor people for months and even years to bring them out of poverty. And so we help them start small companies, and then we stay with them. We continue to see them, and we're that gym to them. We give them that encouragement.
Sure.
And we've seen pretty much within a year, everyone we work with has doubled their household income. So wow. They might be earning $250 in Manila in the Philippines, and when we mentor them through that year, they'll be earning $400 or $500 or $600 a year. And so it really brings them out of that poverty class. And it's probably the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. And it changes our students' lives. They come back and they always tell me 2 things. They say, number 1, I didn't realize I hit the jackpot in life, that I won the lottery.
Right.
And number 2, I'm going to be a giver the rest of my life, not a taker.
Wow.
And it really changes them because they realize how fortunate they are and how much they have to give and how well that they can contribute with whatever skills that they have.
Well, how gratifying that must be for you as their professor.
So that's been just a great experience for all of us.
Yeah. Well, Principle 6, That is help the needy in our community. So this is a little different, and that seems like a noble thing for us to do. But Aristotle, as you note in your book, believed caring for the poor, sure, that was a good thing, but it also made good political sense. So quoting from your book now, he felt that a strong middle class was the key to a well-functioning society. In that case, we're not resentful of the rich and we're not ignoring the poor. And you suggest doing good deeds involves looking for opportunities to be kind and helpful.
Yeah, Aristotle was an amazing thinker, and there are a lot of his writings that are still around, Plato and Aristotle. There's not much from Socrates. He didn't write much, but Aristotle really believed that if we have just real rich people and real poor people, we'll always have conflict in our communities, that we need a very, very large middle class, that we need to mostly have middle class, and we can have a few wealthy and a few poor. And if people in the middle class have been poor, then they understand the poor and they want to help raise them out of poverty. And because now they have resources, they're not resentful towards the wealthy because they've finally accumulated some wealth.
Yeah, they figured out how to do it.
And so it leads to the best society of all when we work to have a middle class. And so people, of all socioeconomic statuses can find, if we all found one person, each one teach one, and we found one person to help lift up, and it wasn't just a one-time act, it was that we're going to be committed to coach and mentor and befriend this person. Then we see people go from where Salsa Queen was when she was suicidal to where she is today. And that benefits all of us and makes the society far better and far richer, much more enjoyable.
What a great idea. Well, so now that we know the 6 principles, what's the first step to implementing our happiness plan? Besides buying the book, which of course I highly recommend. So what is that first step, Michael?
We all know these things. You didn't hear anything or read anything in my book that you hadn't thought about before, is my guess. But the question is, are we doing them? And my discovery is most people don't. They'll occasionally do one or two of these things. And so we just say, our mission, we have a happiness project at the university. We have an online training program. We have lots of videos. We have the book. And what our mission is to get people to just say, you know what, I'm going to try these things. I'll try them for 30 days. And what happens is, as I mentioned, they change our lives in real time. And if we do one or two of them today, we're happier today. And if we do all of them for 2 or 3 weeks or a month, we can't deny that our life has changed. And so what our hope is that people will have that experience. And then later in life, if they slip back into despair or they have challenges that are difficult, they'll remember, if I do those things, my life will be better. And when you think about it, really, it's just putting yourself second and putting your community and your fellow beings first and thinking about others more than we think about ourselves. And that brings us all these emotional and physical benefits. And so the cool thing, I'm a business consultant. I work with a lot of organizational clients, and we used to always think that success led to happiness. But now there's so much evidence that happiness is the driver of success in our careers and in our organizations. Good leaders need to learn to manage happiness, their own happiness and the happiness of their team members. And as we become happier, we communicate more, we like people more, we make more friendships, we have more energy, we set more goals. And so really, this is a mission for, we're on to help people become happier in their personal lives. And the key is they got to do these things. They have to actually act on these things and do them.
Great message.
My message is go out and try them, see what happens.
I love it. Well, before I let you go, I'd love to hear just briefly your trip across the country on a bike. Tell us about that.
Okay. So a few years ago, we were seeing more and more entrepreneurs coming out of really small towns, and they were putting lifestyle first and moving or staying in a small town because they didn't like pollution and they didn't like crime and they didn't like the traffic. So they stayed in a little town of maybe 2,000 people, and there weren't any jobs there, so they had to create their own companies. And so we found 100 companies that were regional and national companies run out of very small towns across America. And we wanted to go interview these entrepreneurs. We thought they would be great role models on how to create your own business doing something you love. And we decided rather than fly in airplanes and stay in chain hotels and eat in chain restaurants, that we would get on our bicycles and ride from the West Coast to the East Coast and interview those 100 entrepreneurs by seeing the country firsthand and up close.
Wow.
And that's what we did.
How long did that take you?
It took 45 days to go 4,000 miles from the coast of Oregon to the east coast of Virginia.
I imagine you got some amazing stories.
We have many, many stories. In fact, the stories are all documented in a book called Main Street Entrepreneur.
Oh, of course.
Right after that experience we had.
Wow, that sounds like a fascinating read as well. Well, I want to point out that this is not a book. Your One People, One Planet book is not one that you can flip through in an afternoon. It's really meant for contemplation and absorption. And I want to thank you for your insights, Michael Glauser, and taking the time and effort to capture such age-old wisdom and to write your book. And the stories you offer, as I mentioned, are so fresh and impactful. I plan to refer to this as a resource that I'll be using often. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Great talking to you. And Dr. Michael Glauser's book, One People, One Planet, 6 Universal Truths for Being Happy Together, is available on Amazon and other places as well. To read more, go to flagstaffbusinessnews.com or quadcitiesbusinessnews.com. Now from this higher place on a path to happiness, peace, and civility, we'll get more down to earth and talk about keeping our bodies happy and healthy. Joining us now from Flagstaff is pharmacist Dr. Ted Sapolsky.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Ted. How are you? You're in the Fry's Pharmacy, aren't you, from Flagstaff today?
I am. I have the weekend shift here at Fry's in Flagstaff.
Okay, we'll try not to keep you too long. I know how busy you are. We're hearing about a tripledemic this winter. So that's flu, RSV, and that's that terrible respiratory disease that so many babies and young children are getting. And of course, there's still COVID-19. Please tell us what you're seeing and what we might expect. For instance, how pervasive are these viruses? And how concerned should we be about our health?
Correct. All three are going around. Flu is actually in Coconino County 1,800% increased from the 5-year average.
Wow.
So we're seeing lots of flu, lots of RSV. The COVID is just on a medium level. It's steady in the background, but that can always change at any time.
As we've seen.
Here in Maine, there's the BQ1 and BQ1.1 going around, and I'm sure it will come our way one of these days.
Okay, wow. Well, since the pandemic began, we were getting daily messages about the importance of hand washing and how we can minimize the spread of germs. Ted, what is your number one tip or perhaps your best advice for staying healthy this winter?
Yeah, well, along with getting vaccinated, just like you said, Bonnie, washing your hands for 20 seconds with warm, soapy water on a regular basis. If you need to sneeze, getting your arm up there in the crook so you're covering your sneeze and you're not doing it in your hand. If you're sick, avoiding close contact with others. Stay home from work. If your coworkers come to work sick, ask them to go home. Wear a mask if you need to be out and you're not feeling well. Cleaning surfaces often, especially high contact surfaces, doorknobs, mobile devices. Make sure you're keeping those clean. And just like Grandma used to say, the basics, eating right, getting enough sleep, exercising.
Good point.
Staying hydrated.
You know, I feel like we've let down our guard a little bit as we've gotten more comfortable with the different strains of the pandemic. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why there's so many cases of flu right now. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. Well, we've been masked up for the last 2 years.
Right.
And so especially the little ones, they're not used to seeing these viruses. They haven't seen them before. And just for the rest of us, we've had 2 years where we haven't really been exposed to a lot of these viruses and bacteria because we've masked up and social distancing. And so I think society's back in full swing. People are tired of wearing masks, but we have to wear a mask when necessary. Make sure we're washing our hands and getting back to the basics.
You know, I thought that was interesting that you said if people show up to work sick, and I feel like people are doing that again. And it's okay for us to tell them, to ask them in a nice way if they would please go back home and get well.
Yes, I know that's always it's always difficult because of I'm down one staff member here, and my coworker Betty wasn't feeling so well yesterday. And I don't want her to come to work sick, but if Betty wasn't here, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I have a big line of people waiting for me out there. So thankfully, she's feeling better. But if she came in and wasn't feeling well, I was prepared to send her home and have a rough day.
Sure.
But I think that's just safest for everybody, myself, Betty, and the public.
Yeah. So we all have to be tough and make those big calls that are not convenient for us. Well, Ted, you've been a pharmacist, I believe you told me, for 25 years. So I'm guessing you've no doubt experienced how vaccinations have become increasingly controversial. So how does that play out in your job today? Are we seeing fewer people getting flu shots, less interest in COVID boosters, and what about shingles? I know that pharmacists seem to be.
I wouldn't say I'm seeing less interest, because there's always been that subset of people that weren't overly interested in vaccines, but it was never political before. They just didn't want a vaccine because they weren't worried about it, or they were afraid it was going to actually make them sick. So I've seen more interest in vaccines. There's just more discussion about it. And COVID just made it politicized, which it doesn't need to be politicized. It's just preventative medicine, which is always better than being retroactive. Well, I'm still giving out plenty of flu shots. A reminder, you ideally want to get your flu shots before November comes around.
Okay, and
the flu's really going around this year. It takes about 2 weeks for it to fully kick in, and the flu's running rampant right now. So, if you haven't got your flu shot, I still highly encourage it. But ideally, most every year, you want to try to get into your doctor, your pharmacy before November rolls around.
Okay, and how long do they last? Say if you got a flu shot last spring, are you covered?
No, it's still, we don't know for sure, but I would say at least 6 months or so. The immunity starts to wane maybe after 3 months or 4 months, but it's a possibility. You can even have some protection for a full year.
Oh, that's okay, but it doesn't hurt to get another one.
Well, every season you definitely want to get another one.
Okay. Well, I just want to let you know how much we appreciate you and all the pharmacists out there. Your job has become increasingly difficult and demanding. Is there a best day? You were talking about get your shots, get prepared for the winter. Is there a best way to see the pharmacy?
There is not a best day, but we do encourage appointments. Appointments definitely help us out, kind of smooth the day out. I know some pharmacies in town aren't even doing vaccinations without appointments, but I'll always try to squeeze people in. I know for some of us, especially the elderly, it can be difficult to navigate the software to make an appointment. So we always try to accommodate.
Yeah.
And as a generalization, we get busiest with the after school, after work rush. If you're coming into the pharmacy, if you're in a hurry, don't want to wait in line, between 4 and 6 o'clock is probably the worst time. But that's a big generalization. And there's sometimes where at 5 o'clock there's no line, and so it all depends. We really never know what to expect when we walk in the door.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ted Sapolsky. It's always great to see you, and I know how busy you are, so I won't keep you any longer. And
great seeing you, Bonnie.
Great seeing you too.
Take care, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye-bye. To find out more about what we're calling the Tripledemic, go to flagstaffbusinessnews.com or quadcitiesbusinessnews.com. And I leave you today with thoughts of peace, happiness, and good health. This is Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens.